Imagine walking through a forest when a creature thought extinct for thousands of years stares back at you. It's happened before, and today we're revealing 6 extinct animals that may still be alive, and one of them could be watching you. The elephant bird was like something out of a fantasy book. A bird taller than a basketball hoop, heavier than a horse, and it couldn't even fly. This massive creature lived in Madagascar and was once the biggest bird to ever walk the earth. It stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed around 1,600 pounds. That's like stacking 3 grown men on top of each other and giving them feathers. Even though it couldn't fly, it was powerful. It had strong legs, thick bones, and laid eggs the size of beach balls. Seriously, one elephant bird egg could feed a whole family for days. In fact, their eggs were so big that some could hold the same amount as 150 chicken eggs. But then, they vanished. Most people believe the elephant bird went extinct around 1,000 years ago, likely because of human activity. When people arrived in Madagascar, they hunted the birds and stole their massive eggs. Over time, their numbers dropped until they were completely gone. Or at least that's what we think. Here's where it gets weird. Some explorers and travelers in Madagascar claimed they saw giant bird-like creatures long after the elephant bird was declared extinct. In the 1600s, a French governor wrote about seeing massive eggs and huge bird footprints in the sand. And even in the 20th century, some locals reported hearing loud, heavy footsteps in the forest, way too loud for any known animal in the area. Some believe small populations of elephant birds may have survived in remote parts of the island, especially deep in Madagascar's untouched forests. The island is known for having animals no one thought existed. So the idea of a few giant birds hiding away isn't that crazy. There's even a theory that ancient stories about giant birds stealing people or flattening trees came from real encounters with these creatures. If that's true, who knows what's still hiding out there? And speaking of ancient giants possibly still lurking today, our next animal didn't just walk the earth, it ruled it. Think reptile, razor-sharp teeth, and a body built for ambush. The Andrewsarchus was like a wolf, if wolves were the size of a car and had the bite force of a T-Rex. This beast lived around 45 million years ago and roamed what's now Mongolia and parts of Central Asia. It's one of the most mysterious predators ever discovered, and we only found one skull. No full skeleton, no fossils of its body, just a giant head with massive jaws and terrifying teeth. Based on that skull, scientists think Andrewsarchus was about 6 feet tall at the shoulder and up to 13 feet long. That's longer than a polar bear and taller than most people. It had strong legs, a powerful build, and jaws that could crush bone like a soda can. It wasn't a dinosaur though, it was a mammal, and strangely, it's more closely related to modern-day sheep and whales than dogs or cats. Weird, right? A cousin of a whale that looked like a monster straight out of a nightmare. Now here's the creepy part. Some people believe Andrewsarchus might not be extinct. Over the years, reports have come in from remote parts of Mongolia and Siberia about huge wolf-like beasts. They're described as larger than any known predator, with thick fur, massive heads, and low, rumbling growls. In some villages, there are even legends of demon wolves that appear in the winter and drag away livestock, sometimes even people. While most scientists think these are just myths or mistaken identity, no one can fully explain the stories. And since we've only found one skull, we don't even know exactly what Andrewsarchus looked like. What if it never really went extinct? What if it evolved, adapted, and learned to stay far away from humans? In a place as large and wild as Central Asia, it's not impossible. After all, nature hides its biggest secrets where we rarely look. And if one skull is all we've found, how much else might still be waiting beneath the snow? And if a wolf the size of a truck isn't enough to give you chills, just wait till you hear about the next creature. It comes from deep underground, and it might still be crawling beneath our feet. The Beelzebufo wasn't like any average frog. It was a giant bone-crushing monster nicknamed the Devil Frog. This thing lived around 70 million years ago in what is now Madagascar, and it was huge. We're talking about a frog that could grow up to 16 inches long and weigh over 10 pounds. That might not sound massive until you remember. Frogs are usually tiny, but this one, it was the size of a beach ball, and it had the attitude of a snapping turtle. But the size isn't even the craziest part. Beelzebufo had a bite strong enough to crush small dinosaurs. Yeah, scientists tested its jaw strength and found it could clamp down with the same force as a wolf. and it wasn't picky. It would eat anything that moved, from insects and lizards to baby dinos that got too close. Its skin was thick and bumpy, like armor, and it probably hid in mud or under leaves, waiting to ambush prey. Now, officially, Beelzebufo went extinct along with the dinosaurs. But here's where things get a bit scary. In some parts of Madagascar and South America, locals have told stories for generations about giant frogs, ones big enough to eat chickens or even bite a person. Some explorers have even claimed to see them. Massive, warty frogs hiding near swamps, making deep croaks that shake the ground. There have also been reports of unexplained bite marks on animals that match the jaw shape of Beelzebufo. Could it be a close cousin? Or has the devil frog been hiding in plain sight this whole time? And let's be real, if there's any place a prehistoric predator could survive without being found, it's the dense, wet jungles of Madagascar. We still discover new species there every year. So the next time you're near a swamp and hear a strange croak, maybe don't get too close. And speaking of creatures with big jaws, our next animal isn't slimy or sneaky at all. It's armored, ancient, and may still be dragging its tail through the darkest parts of the jungle. In the deep forests of South America, you might hear a slow, rumbling drag through the leaves. That sound could be a living tank, the Glyptodon. It looked like a giant armadillo, but it was as big as a car and covered in hard armor. It lived in South America during the Ice Age and had a huge, round shell made of bone. This shell was strong enough to protect it from big predators, and it also had a heavy tail with a club at the end. That tail could be used like a hammer to defend itself. The Glyptodon could grow up to 10 feet long and weigh over 2,000 pounds. Its body was low to the ground, and it moved slowly, kind of like a turtle. But what made it special was its strong armor. Even lions or big cats back then had a hard time getting through it. Even though it looked tough, it wasn't a meat eater. It only ate plants, like grass and leaves. It would spend most of its time walking around and eating, staying away from danger. Scientists say the Glyptodon went extinct about 10,000 years ago. Many think it was hunted by early humans, or that changes in the weather made it hard for it to survive. But here's where it gets somewhat interesting. In parts of South America, some people believe creatures like the Glyptodon are still alive for some reason. In the deep forests of Brazil and Paraguay, there have been stories about large, slow animals with hard shells and thick tails. Some farmers even say they've seen them walking near rivers or deep in the jungle. There are also old stories of hunters finding giant shells in the wild, much bigger than anything seen today. And in places where it's hard for people to explore, it's possible that something could still be hiding. The Glyptodon didn't need much to survive, just plants and a quiet place. With thick skin and a strong shell, it could stay hidden for a long time. And if that wasn't strange enough, the next animal is smaller, but some say it can vanish without a trace. The Nandi Bear is one of the strangest animals people say they've seen, and no one really knows what it is. For over 100 years, people in East Africa have told stories about a large, powerful creature that walks on all fours and has thick fur, short ears, and a strong jaw. They call it the Nandi Bear, named after the Nandi people of Kenya, who were among the first to speak about it. Most say it's about the size of a lion or a large hyena with strong legs and a huge head. Some reports even say it can stand on its back legs for a short time, like a bear. But the strange thing is, there are no bears in Africa, at least not anymore. The creature is said to be fast, aggressive, and very dangerous. Local stories say it attacks livestock, and some even believe it has attacked people. But no one has ever caught one, and there are no clear photos or videos. Just footprints, strange noises in the night, and quick sightings deep in the forest. Some scientists think the Nandi Bear could be a misidentified animal, like a big hyena, but others believe it might be something much older, maybe a leftover species from the Ice Age. There used to be a giant meat-eating animal called the chalicotha, and some believe it could be a relative. Others think it could be a type of ancient bear that somehow survived in secret. The reason it's so hard to figure out is because the areas where people see the Nandi Bear are very remote, thick forests, deep valleys, and not many people around. It would be easy for a rare animal to stay hidden for years in a place like that. Even today, new animals are still being discovered in parts of Africa. So the idea that something like the Nandi Bear could still be out there isn't as crazy as it sounds. And if a creature that big can stay hidden for this long, just wait until you hear about the next one. A bird so strange. Some say it cries like a baby and vanishes into thin air. The Madagascan Dwarf Hippo was small, quiet, and very good at hiding. Maybe too good. It lived on the island of Madagascar and looked like a tiny version of the hippos we know today. While normal hippos can weigh over 3,000 pounds, the dwarf hippo was only about the size of a pig, but it had the same thick skin, short legs, and wide mouth. These animals lived in forests and swamps, moving through shallow water and thick plants. Unlike big hippos that mostly stay in rivers, the dwarf hippo liked walking through muddy areas and hiding in the trees. It didn't need much space. which made it harder to find. Scientists say there were actually 3 types of dwarf hippos in Madagascar. They all went extinct sometime after humans arrived on the island, around 1,000 years ago. It's believed that hunting and the loss of forest land played a big part in their disappearance. But here's where the story gets interesting. Local people in Madagascar still talk about animals that sound a lot like the dwarf hippo. They describe small, heavy creatures that live near rivers and only come out at night. Some even say these animals make deep grunting sounds and leave large tracks in the mud. There have been stories of people seeing them as recently as the 1900s. In fact, some researchers in the early 20th century found bones that looked very fresh, almost like the animal had died just a few years before, not hundreds. And because much of Madagascar is still unexplored, filled with thick jungles and deep swamps, it's possible a few dwarf hippos could still be living quietly without anyone noticing. They don't roar or chase things. They just walk, eat, and stay hidden, which makes you wonder what else could be out there living in silence. Well, if you want to find out, click on this video right here where I go over 6 other extinct animals that might actually not be extinct. Trust me, what's in that video makes today's list look tame. Click it now if you're ready, and make sure to subscribe to this channel.